Seeing his younger sister drinking milk, he realized that habits don't just go away, and he remembered that as a child she very much loved the milk of that same charming neighbor, after which he decided to look at his sister's card in the system. Seeing the card of his sister, the system, he was dumbfounded, because there were no skills there. They were not shown and were not unlocked. The relation to the shelter was unknown. Just as he wanted to look at his profile in the system, Sarah ran up to him and said that she had found the fittings and film that he needed, and the fact that she understood that he wanted to build a greenhouse for vegetables. Li Xin then approached him and said that as soon as she heard that he was going to build a greenhouse, she immediately went around and found several types of vegetable seeds to help him seed the greenhouse. Li Xin said that she would go and see his hideouts and would return soon. Liu Feng actually just wanted to make a bed for his little sister. He couldn't get enough of how they could be so smart and think of everything for him. When Liu Feng led them to his hideout, naturally back through the sewer, Sarah and Li Xin were shocked to say the least. Liu Feng defended himself by saying that this was just an emergency exit, since the main gate was blocked by a rock. On the way in the tunnel, Li Xin asked Liu Feng what kind of shelter it was. She hoped it wasn't an ordinary tool storage room. Looking at her beautiful butt, he replied that it was a big shelter, not ordinary and round. Having reached the shelter, the girls realized that it was very good. They thought it was a huge big basement, but that wasn't the case. They even liked the idea of waiting out this collapse in a bunker. Liu Feng was in shock because he didn't understand what was happening and how could this happen. The shelter didn't even last a day, but come on, twice as long. And besides, 2 additional doors appeared. The system answered him that, while he was outside the shelter, it automatically implemented plans for the construction of a dining room, pumping station, and restroom, and this required expanding the area and shelter. Liu Feng calmed down and began to show the girls his mansions. He said that his shelter is being built by an AI manager. There is a restroom on the left, a pump room in the center, and a kitchen on the right. And now they are in the cafeteria, where various edible substances are transferred by artificial intelligence for processing into the desired dish or compressed food. The next room is the pump room, one of the main vital facilities of the entire shelter. Water can be stored here as soon as electricity appears. The next room, he showed the restroom, which has its own bathroom, hot water, available 24 hours a day with electricity, currently can accommodate 10 people. Next, Liu Feng put his hand on the control panel to open the main gate. After the gate opened, they entered and saw a huge pile of stone blocks. This is the main entrance building, but the lieutenant blew it up due to the self-destruct trigger, Liu Feng said. Li Xin carefully examined these stone blocks, took out an explosive device from her pocket, said that she could easily clear this area, and asked everyone to move away. There was a powerful explosion, and a doorway appeared in the rubble. Li Xin said that it was a special bomb for breaking doors. After passing through the rubble, they found themselves in a room with a generator. There were dead zombies lying around. Liu Xin said that at this level the area should be safe, but Liu Feng asked her to guard the entrance to the bunker while he repaired the generator, just in case. After Liu Feng deposited the element of energy that he found for the power plant, the system said that all the elements of his shelter had reached the final stage. The shelter can be upgraded to the 2nd level. After some time inside the bathroom, the girls were talking about how hot water is one of the main elements of power in a post-apocalyptic world. Liu Feng returned to the main computer to begin upgrading the shelter to the 2nd level. The system announced the start of the upgrade and said that it would take 6 days and 5 hours. Meanwhile, the energy source would run out 4 months after upgrading the shelter and asked Liu Feng to find a new energy source. Liu Feng was also happy that he now had access to 4 new blueprints: a teleportation room, a medical room, a combat suit laboratory, and a firearms laboratory. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Secretary Sarah told Li Xin that hers were very large, and she was even envious. To which Li Xin replied that she was also very small, and she did not even think that she could take a hot bath at such times. Afterwards, the girls decided to go to Liu Feng since he had probably been waiting for them for a long time. After taking a hot bath, the girls decided to wear the uniforms they found in the shelter, but they did not expect this from Liu Feng. Telling him that he is a common pervert, This uniform is specially designed to make them look very erotic. Liu Feng was shocked because he didn't even know about the existence of the uniform. He asked the system why they have such uniforms. The system told him that this uniform was created from the imagination of his brain. Li Xin slapped him and said that this time she forgives him, but next time she will make him regret his actions very bitterly. After all these misunderstandings, Liu Feng decided to start a discussion and make plans for the future. He asked Sarah to explain to them everything, how much of what they had left. Sarah said that the vegetables brought would last for 4 weeks, and 65 cans of various products and 2 bags of rice, if saved, would last a month. The water supply is not a concern, so the first priority is to find more food. The second priority task is the search for new energy sources. Li Xin complimented Sarah, saying that you can find food and energy a few kilometers away, and you don't have to worry about medicine, because they can just collect it at the hospital. After which the girls asked if Liu Feng had anything to add. Meanwhile, Liu Feng was thinking about how smart he was and managed to foresee everything. Then she said that, of course, everything is good, but they cannot collect food forever. After which he asked the girls to follow him. Just recently he was telling them about the greenhouse. He brought them to the boiler room and said that he was going to install a greenhouse in the water pumping room where there was a lot of space. After he finished speaking, the girls asked with admiration in their eyes if he needed their help. He said that you shouldn't look at him like that, and that you don't need their help in the matter of construction. He asked the system what was needed to build a greenhouse. The system responded that the missing materials were needed, namely nutrient solution, truth bell hydroponic plant, and also needed 100 points to buy everything. Liu Feng confirmed the purchase and spent 100 points, after which robotic arms appeared from the floor and began building a greenhouse. Sistema said the greenhouse will be completed in 2 days. Li Xin was dumbfounded that it was possible to build a greenhouse so quickly. After a moment she realized that this artificial intelligence seemed to match Liu Feng's personality. Meanwhile, behind the alley not far from the hospital, a black-haired girl with her bandits asked the zombies if they had seen the woman from the photograph. The same rich man who was hit by Liu Feng in the hospital replied that he had not seen this girl. He asked me to save him because he has a lot of money. If she saves him, he will give her everything. When she heard that he had offered her money, she immediately became furious. Having borrowed a bat with barbed wire from her partner, she immediately struck the rich man in the head. She beat him with this bat, saying how should they know, the rich, how the poor survive. It made her very angry that money could decide something in their lives. She said that the oppressed, exploited poor were only able to survive by hiding in the subway, and the rich people despicably call them subway dogs. After the deadly virus spread, the chipless iron dogs from the subway, on the contrary, were able to hide, she said, after which, with a hard blow of the bat, she broke his head. After what they saw, her assistants asked her if she really offered a large reward for finding that girl. Zheng Tianxiong replied that it was true, but he was not a good person. Since times have changed, the end of the world has come. Their underground clan will exterminate all the rich dogs, and they will rise to the top in the doomsday hierarchy. Meanwhile, it was already midnight in the shelter, and Liu Feng could not sleep, as it was his first night sleeping in the shelter, and he was very nervous, due to facing the biggest disaster in human history. He was also haunted by the thought that this was the first time he slept in the same room with girls. Although he had a girlfriend before, he had never even held her hand. So that he decides to think about something else and asks the system to show him the drawings of a new second-level shelter. The system showed that the shelter was automatically expanded after upgrading to the second level. All first-level buildings are automatically upgraded. The system began to tell him that the factory for the production of combat clothing creates combat uniforms. The factory for the production of small arms requires authority and procurement talent in times of the end of the world. In the treatment room, you can use various medicinal ointments. As long as there are resources, it is possible to produce goods every day. Also, transformation skills have been improved to the second level, explosive abilities have been improved, paralysis has been improved, overall speed has been increased, and 5 magical effects have been fixed. Meanwhile, Sarah, having undressed, slowly creeps up to him. Just a few seconds later, a scantily clad Sarah in her underwear was standing next to his bed. He was in a panic because he didn't know what to do. The system said that the better the relationship with a person, the more likely it is that something will happen. At that moment, he was still thinking that if they woke up Li Xin, she would definitely think that he was a pervert. Sarah climbed under his blanket, hugged him from behind, and pressed herself against him. Liu Feng, of course, was not against intercourse, but he told his secretary Sarah that they had only known each other for one day, and they could not do anything like that today. After he realized that Sarah was not answering him, he turned around and saw that she was sleeping. He realized that she was just walking in her sleep. He didn't even think that Sarah was a sleepwalker, and he decided not to wake her up. Otherwise, because of the noise, Li Xin might also wake up after being very angry. He decided not to sleep, but to go for a walk around the shelter. And the next morning I decided that the girls should under no circumstances find out about what happened last night. After which he turned to the system, saying that he wanted to try out new magical transformation abilities. And he decided to try to convert the ammunition that Li Xin found in the ruins after the explosion. The bullet converted successfully. 2 points were spent, and the bullet gained an explosive effect. Liu Feng understood that he did not have any non-antique weapons, and he asked the system if he could transform this cartridge into any kind of small arms. The system replied that it couldn't, but he had access to unallocated talent points. Liu Feng really liked the news and decided to distribute it as follows. He asked the system to increase the sensation talent by 1 point, add 3 points to the Kung Fu Master talent, and spend all the attribute points on increasing strength. The system increased all of Liu Feng's characteristics and said that he had the ability to improve his Kung Fu skill to the level of a Kung Fu Master glove. But he must know that if he fails to rise, all his points will be lost. He has a 5% chance that everything will work out. Liu Feng nevertheless decided to take a risk and chose to transform the Kung Fu level to improve the Kung Fu Master's glove. The system began to improve, and at some point, he even began to feel pain. Fortunately for him, the improvement of Kung Fu was successful, and he received the gloves of a Kung Fu Master. Also, 3 connectors in the first connector stored power, which, thanks to the gloves, increased by +1 indicator. He also had a magnetic force of attracting metal, and there was 1 more empty connector left. But before he had time to rejoice in his gloves, he suddenly had a new order for delivery, and the number 9527 appeared on his phone. It was Kelly. She was somewhere several kilometers from the shelter, and she only now had the opportunity to contact Liu Feng. She asked him to come to her because she needed his help. Without thinking for a long time, Liu Feng and Li Xin moved to help Kelly. Li Xin was very surprised to see that there were still eagles in the city. Liu Feng went on a mission with Li Xin, not because he wanted it so much, but because his younger sister Xin Tong was in a deplorable state. A few days ago, Sarah found his little sister in such a deplorable state. The system said that his sister's mutation was progressing again, and he needed to upgrade the shelter to level 5 as soon as possible. Li Xin said that as far as she knows, the Kelly who called him holds the status of president of the Beautiful Sky Corporation, and she was previously engaged to Zheng Tianshun, but most likely it was a political marriage. She offered to find her, because this way they can dig up more information about Zheng Tianxiang. Sarah looked at the maps and said that Kelly was in a large shopping center a few kilometers away. They could go and rescue her, and at the same time find the substances they needed. As usual, the system offered to choose a mission until they got there. The first option was to find the substance. The survival rate was 92%. Bonus points for completing missions were 1,000 points. The second option is to find materials and add them to the shelter. Survival rate, 30%, bonus points, 5,200 points. Of course, they chose the second option and began to make their way through densely populated zombie areas towards the shopping center where Kelly was. Suddenly, they decided to stop because there were a lot of zombies ahead, and they realized that they needed to move quietly. Liu Feng suggested that Li Xin use her battle invisibility cloak, to which she replied that it had a government tracking chip on it, and she put it in a protective shelter. When the signal disappears, the government will assume she died in service. After listening to her, Liu Feng said that he modified the bullet for her. Now this bullet has an explosive effect. He just asked him to use it carefully. Li Xin thanked him and put the clip into her pocket.